It's preparing. Then I'll have to pause it on the audio part.
I see a note that says we're streaming live now.
All right, and we are live. Now let's see if everyone is showing up. All right, so we are live on YouTube. Um, so we're going to introduce ourselves. So my name is John Hull. I am one of the co-chairs of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee for the Real Pride Network. And if you don't know, the Real Pride Network, we bring together LGBTQ plus real estate professionals who are committed to high levels of integrity in everything that we do. We connect like-minded consumers with our professionals. We then give back to those in our community who are facing housing challenges. We further advocate for equality in housing with a particular emphasis on safe housing for LGBTQ plus seniors and homeless youth. And our core values are inclusivity, democracy, transparency, and accountability. And now we're just going to go around and introduce ourselves. Um, Rocky, you want to introduce yourself next?
Yes, so I'm Rocky Flowers, and the pronouns I use are he, him. I am in Seattle, Washington, and I am one of the co-chairs of the Diversity and Inclusion Board for Real Pride Networks. And I'm super excited to have everyone on the panel here, and I'm so grateful for everyone that's tuning in to watch this. So I feel like this is going to be a great panel, looking forward to it, and I will pass it on off to Sherry.
All right, thanks, team. I'm Sherry Swift, and I am privileged and honored and humbled and just as lucky as any gal can get to be the president of the Real Pride Network. I am also a business coach and a productivity coach. I have the privilege of working around this industry for over 20 years and supporting people all around this industry. So this is a very important conversation, team, that we're having today, especially in light of everything that's going on around the world. I'm very grateful for everyone that is taking the time to plug in here, and thank you for everyone for organizing this and for managing this. Oh, it's my turn to turn it off to somebody else. I'm sorry. I was just I shut it off just like that. Marina, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marina Llewellyn. I am up here in Northern Colorado. I am extremely privileged to be part of this group. I love everything that we do, and I love working with these fabulous people. Actually, it's one of my favorite meetings that I look forward to is talking with all the ladies and gentlemen that join our committee. And I will pass it off to Vincent.
Hi, everyone. Vincent Grindy here, and I am greeting you from lovely Denver, Colorado. I am a realtor here with Keller Williams. I actually work two markets. I work the Denver market, I work the Palm Springs market, but right now, currently, I'm in Denver. I have the privilege to serve on two diversity committees here in Colorado. I serve on the Denver Board of Realtors, and I also serve on the Colorado Association of Realtors Diversity and Inclusion Committees for both of those entities. And I am just super excited. I'm honored to serve as a role on this committee with Real Pride. It's just a complete honor, and I'm super excited about our broadcast today. And with that, I shall turn it over to our guest, Irvin.
Hey, I'm Irvin. My pronouns are they, her. I'm based out of the Seattle, Washington area. I was a realtor, but now I'm working on the admin side for a small boutique brokerage in the Seattle area. Super excited to be here and lend my voice and get to network with Real Pride and join. So here we go.
Wonderful. Thank you, Irvin. And thank everybody for being here today. And we have the fortunate pleasure of having Marina be the moderator for today's panel. So it's my pleasure to turn everything over to Marina right now so we can jump right in.
Okay, so I have a series of questions and I'm just going to ask, and I ask that each of you answer quickly, in about 3 to 4 minutes per answer is what we have, so that we can get through all the questions and everybody has an opportunity to voice their opinion. So starting off, question 1. Implicit bias or unconscious bias operate outside a person's awareness and can often be a direct contradiction to a person's espoused beliefs and values. How can we in the real estate industry address and either change our own or other people's unconscious biases? Rocky.
Well, so I do want to preface too and say that this is a very sensitive topic. And I think it's important that it's going to be kind of raw. And I think that we're, in order to have a good dialogue, we have to we have to be real and talk about these things. But to answer your question, and I was kind of preparing, I was like, I think we're going to get in some deep stuff in this talk. And I just want people to understand, not be afraid to get it out there and say what you want to say. Because I know there's some things I'm like, oh God, are we going to be, how's that going to go across? But to answer the question, I think some of the things that are important and how we can kind of dispel this is what we need to focus on the individuals and see people as individuals rather than focusing on the preconceived stereotypes that we have about other people. And we have to, within ourselves, work consciously to kind of overcome those stereotypes and overcome those bias. And part of that is, when things kind of come to, when you're experiencing it, taking time to kind of pause and reflect and say, where is this coming from? Why do I have this bias, and why and how am I going to change the way that I react to it? And, try adjusting, we have to adjust our perspective. And one of the ways we do that is by kind of immersing ourselves into, number one, cultures or different types of groups that are different from ourselves, because we can kind of get in this echo chamber of, being around people that are just like us all the time, and that's all we know. And all that does is reinforce the bias that we have against other groups or other different types of people.
That's a great answer, Rocky. Does anybody else want to add something?
I will. So I think you were specifically asking about, as far as our realtor community as well, talking about that. So I actually had a conversation, ironically, this morning with a group of realtors here in Denver. And I really, am an advocate for education. I believe that education is really going to be the key to solving these issues and these problems, these challenges that we have. And I know we speak a lot about this and we talk a lot about this, but I think it's time that we just call people to the table. And my call to action this morning in this actual conversation that we had was that we need to address it to the broker owners, to the brokerages, to the higher ups. We need to sit down, whether it's a round table, Zoom call, coffee, however we can all come together. We need to sit down at the table and we need to talk about this. We need to open it up and we need to educate from the top down. And I think that with that, they need to be held accountable. I think that, as you can see, we're all agents here for the most part, and we are all taking a piece of the action and our involvement in it. But I really believe that it's time that we call some ownership to this and have a really deep discussion and really, bring some action to the table so that we actually can see some results out of it rather than small groups just talking about it all the time. So I'm just always a proponent of education. I think it's a peaceful way to bring everybody together and to get the word across.
That's a great answer. So recently, NAR has changed Article 10 of the Code of Ethics, Standard of Practice 10-5. Realtors must not use harassing speech, hate speech, epithets, or slurs based on race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familiar status, or national origin, or sexual orientation, or gender identity. With this change, there has been a decrease in both NAR and I know here in Colorado, CAR, some of which has been simply because of membership and end of year, but also some of the Article 10 had an impact on that. Do you think that this is an indication that we will see an increase in negative bias behaviors from our industry?
I believe that there will be an increase before there is an educational enlightening. Or I think that we're experiencing it in other places of the world right now, right? It's darkest before the dawn, right? And so I do believe that there will be so many people. There's no place to hide right now. All filters are off. You feel the way you feel, you believe the way you believe. And there couldn't be more opposite ends of the spectrum that exist. And I believe this creates so much opportunity for us to be who we are. And then I also believe that there's going to be that quiet space, that uncomfortable space, where so many people are going to have to sit down inside of the fact that they don't know how they feel about this. And they're trying to reckon with their own mindset around what they believe, what they've been taught, what they feel, what they hear on Sundays, everything else. And I think that's where, like Vincent shared, the education comes in. I think that there has to be more of our community that will sit down with people and have a conversation that's sometimes not always invited, where we educate and create an empath in people.
That's a great
I'm actually really surprised at the amount of just anyone who disassociates themselves because of what has come up. I mean, it tells me, first of all, if you believe that hate speech is wrong and that we have zero tolerance for it, no policy or whatever should bother you because you're not participating in this. What concerns me is when I hear people disenfranchise themselves from our organization because this has been implemented, which is sending to me a signal that perhaps maybe they disagree with that they feel that there is a place for hate speech, which really is just completely concerning for me. Because if you are against hate speech, if you are, somebody who believes in equality, and why would that bother you then? So it triggers another question to me as to what their real beliefs are if they're going to walk away from this.
Right. It's one of those things where it's like, it's sucks that, people are, branch off doing their own thing and disagreeing with this, but it's also like, now we know who they are. And so it's like really being cognizant of our emotional capital and using that to build our community as opposed to help convert those who oppose us. And like Sherry said, it's like, it's very kind of stark black and white of where people stand on hate speech and what they're allowed to say. And so it is unfortunate. But it's also an opportunity for us to kind of empower the ones that we do have and kind of reinforce our values. Yeah, and it just is, obviously bigger than real estate and just in the real world of where everyone stands. And with social media, it's going to be crazy when COVID's over, when we have all these people who disagree, and then all of a sudden now we're face to face with each other again. How do we handle these situations? Which is why these discussions are so important, because eventually it's not going to be us negotiating behind the screen or meeting brokers behind a screen. It's going to be meeting clients and doing all this stuff in person. And how do we handle bias when we see it, when we feel it, when we ourselves feel it? Because we're not absolved of bias, obviously. And so this is the perfect time. And I think that what I've done is try to educate others by telling other people what I'm learning about myself, as opposed to, I think some people can kind of be turned off by this is what you should learn and blah blah blah, whereas I'm trying to spin it to where I'm like, this is all stuff that I'm learning. I'm not perfect either. This is not all the ways that I'm biased as well that I'm working on. So a lot of internal work.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like obviously NAR kind of reacted to a lot of hatred, and that's kind of prompted some of the changes. So there's definitely been an increase, and I think there's going to be an increase for some time. And then hopefully in the coming coming weeks, months, maybe we can finally get to a point where we're healing, and we can educate and everyone can come together again, and maybe after COVID.
Those are all really good responses to that question. So to bring this in to a little bit more personal level, Can you tell us of a time you experienced bias in the real estate setting when you witnessed a client or fellow agent or even a vendor do or say something that was clearly biased? And how did you handle that? John, you're up.
I'm about to say, I have a very recent example, as in about 20 minutes ago. So sometimes you worry when you have clients who are the same gender that if when they see the offer, they're going to be like, oh, I don't know if I want to sell to this person. You're wondering if people's biases are going to affect whether or not they choose this offer over another offer. And on one of the documents we just got back for our closing, it's a same-sex couple, two guys, and it has one of them's name, and then it has wife, and then it has the other one, and they're not married. And I'm sure it was an oversight, but it's one of those things you wonder how much of their people's own biases have affected their reactions or their decisions based on this real estate transaction. And it shouldn't be about that, and it should just be everyone's people, and everyone's money is the same as everyone else's money. It's not like it's like we all bleed the same color. And but that's a recent example. But I guess I've been kind of fortunate that I haven't had too many instances where I could clearly say that yes, they really did not want to make a decision or choose my particular clients because of their gender or same sex or any kind of biases. But it's out there, and it's on the lender side, it's on the real estate agent side, it's on the seller side. I mean, we're dealing with people, and it's a lot of people that have to come together to make a real estate transaction happen. And everyone has their own biases, whether or not they admit it or act on it is one thing, but it does happen. But yeah.
I find that Oh, I'm sorry. Go on, Rocky.
Oh no, I was so I've had some situations where Seattle is a ever-changing city. There's a lot of gentrification going on here, and I'm out showing houses, and I've had clients and say, they say, what's is this neighborhood good, or is this neighborhood is getting better, which are all code for this, we're gentrifying here. And it's a difficult position when it's a client saying something or asking a question that is clearly coming from some type of bias that they have rooted inside of them. It's a difficult because it's like you don't want to make your client uncomfortable, but at the same time, I'm being a person of color, offended in some ways by whatever the question was or whatever the comment was. And more often than not, I usually, when that type of thing happens, I start asking questions like, you ask me if the neighborhood is safe. Well, what is safe to you? What's safe to you may not be safe to me. I might not, feel like, safe in a different neighborhood in a different part of town because of my color, but I may be feeling safe in this neighborhood because there's a type of crime or a type of situation going down here that you're not comfortable with that doesn't bother me, And so it's kind of turning it around. It kind of gets people to think in that moment about what they have just said to me and how that has come across, and it gets the gears going. And I don't know if it's a life-changing experience for them, but I definitely know they start thinking about where that was coming from and how that might have been offensive to say to me or to anyone.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to add to that, Sherry?
I was just going to share that I find myself in a really sensitive spot right now. These last 11 months have been, oh my goodness. I am a Black woman who has a wife, who, whenever someone meets me and my wife, consistently remind us that it doesn't look like we should have wives. I am a Black woman who owns a business and considers myself to be quite successful, who a significant amount of my clients are Caucasian and of other cultures. And we are consistently reminded and biased that we're different or that they don't think of us that way. there is bias that we experience all the time from people that we love and that love us, and they mean 100% no harm by any of it. And I think that the biggest weight is from a leadership perspective, and that's everyone on this screen that has the responsibility of managing other people's emotions on a day-to-day basis. I think the biggest challenge is just learning how to manage how that's directly impacting us and not throwing up all the frustration on everybody else. It's been, like Irvin said, it has been a rough, tough year. And so for me personally, I am managing this terrain and working hard to be what everyone needs me to be, but remembering that I have my own emotions through all of this. And it's been rough. It's been rough. So yes, I have experienced bias on top of bias on top of bias while I'm managing other people's bias and helping other people through their bias and helping them and showing them how to think and feel while trying to manage myself through all of it. So I'm completely leaning in as well and saying, yeah, I'm learning through all of this too and managing my own stuff at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, when it really is about taking care of yourself and also trying to, pick our battles and really manage where we're putting our energy and controlling what we can control. And especially when we're working with sellers. And I've had plenty of clients in the past who have had questionable values. And it's like, okay, now I'm an intersect of like, am I compromising my values and what I stand for to help this person? And yet, at any point, you can obviously leave the transaction and leave that relationship if it's, violating, it's not worth it for you. I think that especially when there's, like with multiple offer situations, stuff like that, we've obviously seen stuff where I, in general, will never reveal offers names ever. I just as a personal policy, and every client's like, why did you like love letters, never reveal them? I just, no matter what, when I'm working with the seller, it's always like, nope, I'm just not going to reveal their names. Their name doesn't matter. And also we work with a lot of seniors, and so we are dealing with, a generation that not that's an excuse, but a generation where things were different, 40, 50 years ago. And my way of justifying it, it's also, that's not a blanket answer, but it's like we are helping this next generation of homeowners. Someone's going to have to buy their house, and if I can help this seller make a decision that's not biased, I'm going to do it. Even if I don't necessarily admire their values, I've, as a person of color, have had racist clients, and you're like, are you blind? But okay. And I sure did take that paycheck, but I made sure that, every step of the way, I was in control of making sure that wasn't, that no fair housing laws were violated and stuff like that. So I think that it is really about controlling what you can control and letting go of what you can't, I guess. And it is a deeper systemic societal issue that we're trying to tackle in just a little real estate world. But it's important because it's, as the most important purchase of someone's life and the source of generational wealth. So
Yes.
Great answers, everyone. Irvin, since you were the last one that was talking, I'm going to start off with you again.
Perfect.
So the home buying process can feel overwhelming, intrusive, and leave us feeling vulnerable, but even more so for the transgender populace. How can we ensure that every interaction throughout the process is handled appropriately to create a safe environment for all clients and potential clients that we work with?
It's a great question. I think that with the bias question too, I also feel kind of sheltered where it's like, I've been in real estate so long that if I wanted as a trans person to do a real estate transaction, I know every step of the way who I can talk to, that I know it's a safe place. And so I think that when you have a client and you're in real estate, it's almost your duty to offer that to your clients too. And you're having these discussions with your escrow people, with your lenders, with even your inspectors and everyone across the line, where you're like, even if it's just a Wednesday, it's a slow time. It's winter, you don't have any transactions, and you're just touching base with your sphere. Hey, how are you doing? And then you just bring up a conversation. This is something that's important to me. I want to be able to provide services to trans people and genderqueer people. I want to make sure that you feel comfortable and that this is a safe place for my clients, and kind of open up that dialogue. And I think that in real estate, realtors really can be and should be the gatekeepers of fair housing and equality, because we are really the people touching every single part of the transaction and able to kind of vet and kind of feel people out. As real estate agents, we get people's vibe right away, and so it's really easy to try to pass that along and pass along that knowledge to our clients. And it's hard because it's already such an emotional and hard process to be an agent and to be helping these people and as oppressed people. But it's like we kind of have to be that pillar for our clients, to be that first line of defense, I guess.
Mhm.
Does anybody
I al-
want to add?
I also,
Go ahead.
kind of to add to that is that, oftentimes, like Urban said, we're really good at being able to read people and understand where people are coming from. But also during those times when we're not, I think we have to not be afraid to ask questions and to be inquisitive. And because that's just it's more respectful to ask questions and understand where someone's coming from and how they want to be identified and what their situation is. Ask the question, then assume something, and assuming the wrong thing, or assuming something that's going to make them uncomfortable or make them or turn them off or offend them. And so it's not something we normally do, and especially in our society, we're taught to like not dig too deep into people's personal lives and to kind of like just assume by what you see. But asking a question, getting clarification up front, if it's not, and usually most people are pretty open to telling you if they're pretty comfortable for the most part, because I think that they're searching us out, especially like I work for a team that it's a gay and lesbian team. We're super queer friendly. People seek us out, so they're very comfortable opening up to us. But sometimes we have to not be afraid to ask, and so that we're not hurting someone's feelings or making someone uncomfortable. So,
Does anybody want to add to that?
I would
Okay.
just say that, in the LGBTQ community with real estate, we all have a lot of challenges, but I think, we need to be more vigilant, more sensitive to the trans community, based on the challenges that the trans community faces every day, especially in housing. I mean, just everyday life, but in housing in general. I have a client. They were going into retirement. She's trans, and they were moving out of state, and we were selling their home. They were buying a home in another state to retire. And, I did to get help them get financing for their new home. And, the move, retiring after 40 years, change, income, and just everything, that she could face. Her biggest fear and challenge through this whole discussion we had at their kitchen table was sitting down with the lender and getting qualified as somebody who's transgender. And it was very emotional. And I just really, it really hit me because, as a middle-aged gay man, yeah, of course I'm challenged all the time. But then I was like, but I don't really have all these type of feelings that much. I mean, I have feelings, but nothing of that magnitude. And it just really pulled at my heart to hear this beautiful person, she's just a wonderful citizen in our community, have this fear at her age. It really hurt me and really bothered me.
I think that everyone's feelings and emotions around this topic are 150% valid. And so I'm going to just interject right here in the middle and say thank you all for being honest and talking and actually answering these questions, because I do know that they are tough questions. Moving on, what can we do from a talent acquisition standpoint to seek a more diverse pool of industry professionals in real estate?
We need to
Don't everybody
recruit.
talk at once.
We need to recruit on purpose. We need to recruit on purpose.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that starts at the head. I think it starts with the broker owners. I think it starts with the CEOs. I think it starts at the head of the room, at the end of the table, that there needs to be a understanding for a need for diversity. I need somebody that looks like me, sounds like me, loves like me, feels like me at this table. And if I don't see somebody at this table that looks like me and reminds me of myself, then I don't see opportunity for myself here. And so there has to be intentional recruiting that needs to happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think a good example is even here in Seattle, even within my brokerage, if you go to different neighborhoods where different offices are, the demographics of those offices are very specific to that type of, the client or the type of client that they perceive is in that neighborhood. And so to your point, Sherry, it does have to be intentional, and it does need to come from the top, whether it's the franchise, top of the franchise, or the office, but that recruitment needs to come from above. And they need to go out in those communities and really recruit people, because everyone's living everywhere now, more and more, not quite, but more and more. And like you said, people want people that have things in common with them, whether it's their gender or their sexuality or their ethnicity or their culture. They want to work with somebody that kind of gets them, especially for a transaction that's so personal and so intimate. And that is the biggest transaction of most people's lives. They want people that they feel they have a rapport with. And like you said, management needs to get out there, and CEOs need to get out there and make sure that we're recruiting diverse groups of people in all of our offices.
Yeah, 100%. I think that it goes hand in hand with, if we want to help our community and help a more diverse clientele, we also need to be diverse, because they're gonna want to, like Sherry said, representation is so vital. And just to use race example, if you see, if your entire team is all pretty diverse, and then it's just a bunch of white leadership, there's another issue there as well. So it's really important. I'm glad Sherry brought that up, that it really does start from the top. Otherwise, there's nowhere for the agents or anyone on staff to kind of aspire to, for sure.
And I think one of the key pieces is also, starting at the top, like you both said, but also having a diverse leadership, and having that diverse leadership out on the streets, bringing in, the recruits that we're talking about. Because, adults, we're like little children as well. We peek into the room. If we don't see somebody that looks like us or talks like us or thinks like us, we're afraid to go in that room. And that's the problem, I believe, in our industry, is that we don't have enough diversity at the top level to go out there and speak about this and bring in talent diversity into the brokerages.
Are there any practices or processes in the real estate industry as a whole, your brokerage or your office, that you think are biased, and what needs to happen to make that change?
Good one.
Yeah, that's a tough one. To repeat that one more time, Marina. I'm gonna have to think on that one.
Are there any practices or processes in the real estate industry as a whole, in your brokerage or your office specifically, that you think are biased, and what needs to happen to make that change?
I'm gonna go with an older brokerage that I was with, because I feel my current brokerage is pretty on top of this sort of thing, and they're very diverse and open to ideas and stuff. But a previous brokerage that I was in, reading their policies and procedures, it was almost like you could feel the intent of some of it, and it was simple stuff like and the policies were older, obviously, but even such small things as talking about gender, there really wasn't anything gender related in there, but things like it would say sexual preference, and like that, just a little wording like that just kind of like stuck with me. I'm like, well, that's not really right. And and even more so than the policies that you could read, and they were clearly a little bit outdated, and they had some old world thinking, I guess you could say, that weren't quite accurate. Was also the owner of the company, and hearing him speak, his biases were very evident, and it sat with me the wrong way from the first time, and the first time that I heard him speak, and from then on I had a sour taste in my mouth, like, yeah, I got to get away from this company, because it's not affirming for LGBT people. Even though they say they might be, or they're trying to be, they haven't made steps towards getting to that point where it's becoming a safe place for people to use these agents, to be in this brokerage office or whatnot. So yeah, that's my little experience with that.
Yeah, I think that it brings up a really good point of these like the small microaggressions that happen with language and stuff like that, and going through, employee manuals, and going through and just, as a leadership team, just highlighting all the things that you think could be changed, or gender could be taken out completely, or stuff like that. And even there's small admin stuff where I would notice at previous brokerages where they would name their transactions with the address, obviously, and always a name. Um, and 90% of the time, if the last names were different, it was always the male's last name that was used, and it always bothered me. So it's taking a look at mission statements and stuff like that, because little things like using pronouns, and it's those things that will are seem small but tip me off as a trans person. Like when I see someone with their pronouns, or I see that they use gender neutral language, I'm automatically like, oh, I'm safe here. Um, and I think that it's something that can be really easy to do. But yeah, I think I work in a small boutique brokerage, so it's like it's a lot easier, I guess. And I know a lot of the bigger names, it can be kind of a little more complicated with what you're allowed to do with corporate and stuff. But I think worth a look for sure.
I think that, like, too, in our industry as a whole, there's bias just in general. And I think it was in November of 2019, I think it was either Newsday or I think it was Newsday, they did that investigation, and they found that, I think it was in New York and Long Island, and they found that there was rampant discrimination going on, and people and real estate agents steering different types of people to different types of neighborhood based on their race. And the way that first of all, people, companies need to understand that every individual has bias. And I think that real estate, the industry, and all these, these large companies, we all need to implement some type of bias training so that people can recognize when they are feeling it and understand, so that they don't act on it. Because we all have bias, but when you act on it, usually you're acting on it, and it's racism is what it turns into. And so we need to as a whole, our companies that we all respectfully work for need to implement some type of bias training for all the agents and escrow people and title people and lenders. We all need to go to that training so that we can kind of try and push this out of the industry, because our industry is responsible for the bias that has been in our industry since, is responsible for creating kind of these segregated neighborhoods that we have in the country. And we have a responsibility to fix that. And one of the best ways I can see us doing is through training.
Yeah, for sure.
So then let me ask you this question, because no matter what the topic is, we often hear more training is needed to make change. But some research suggests that anti-bias training cannot be a one-size-fits-all approach to solving the issue, that we need to focus more on systemic biases first. And the little microaggressions are not being counteracted by the micro acceptances that we are receiving in our community. How do you feel about that statement?
Oh, me? Sorry. Repeat it one more time. Sorry. There was a lot of micro and micro. I was like, what?
Some research suggests that anti-bias training is not a one-size-fits-all approach, and that and it won't solve the issue. Do you feel that we need to focus more on systemic biases first, and that will in turn fix the anti-biases of the unconscious bias or implicit biases that we're experiencing?
I definitely think that we need to focus on the systemic bias, because it's so ingrained into our culture, and we have to cut that off early, because we're not going to be able to. All the others we can kind of fix when people can make adjustments and personal adjustments, but when systemic, that means that is everyday life and everything that we're looking at, from trying to go pick out a Barbie doll, to trying to pick the neighborhood you want to live in, to picking the school. All those things are systemic, and they have to be addressed in a broader and in the bigger picture before we can kind of tackle the little things.
Okay. Does anybody else want to chime in?
I agree. I think these are deeply rooted issues. The roots are so deep. And yes, it is important that we deal with the systemic, but that we don't use the fact that the systemic exists as an excuse to not move forward in our thinking and doing. We cannot lean back and just kind of say, well, it's all systemic, which is, yes, that's true. And there's some things we can change today, because there's an entire generation that understands better, thinks better, knows better. What I guess we hope is that we outgrow the systemic racism, and that there's more people that think and feel differently. On the topic that you just asked about, Marina, regarding the brokerages, I support brands all over the place. I'm across brands in what I do in the training. And I am so proud of the majority of the brands that I support, because the majority of them have built-in mechanisms that deal with pride and that deal with one network, and that they've already, so many of them have stepped out from a brokerage perspective and said, we realize that we need to be a little more open, and then there needs to be a safe place. I see more of that now than I did 10 years ago, and definitely than I did 20 years ago. Okay, so I think we're moving in the right direction, and there's more consciousness from a leadership perspective. I just know that there needs to be more conversation, real conversation, and I'll continue to say, with the leadership, with the broker owners. I had so many broker owners to reach to me over the George Floyd crisis and say, oh my gosh, can you come in and do some diversity and inclusion training? Because we didn't know, like we had no idea, right? So yes, it's all systemic. A lot of it is systemic, but that's not an excuse for us to not start repairing
Right.
what's on the surface. I think we got to start dealing with whatever, we start where we are, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
It does seem that every generation moving forward gets a little bit more accepting, a little bit more diverse. So that does give me some hope.
Yeah, I think that a lot of it, like we've discussed before, has to do with education of like, these are just straight up the numbers. These are the percentage of homeowners that are a certain race, or who are trans, or who are X, Y, and Z, and this is why. And that kind of, marries real estate with the systemic part. And I know a lot of people like to keep politics out, but you can't in real estate, because, you look at like mass incarcerations and they're like, how does that relate? And you're like, well, hello, all, this group of people are in jail and they're not making any money, and they're having to resort to all these things, and they're over policed. And so I think it's really, really important that we don't shy away from that anymore, and that we marry, every single vote matters, and every single measure that we're putting into affects home ownership. And in fact, anything that affects income is going to affect home ownership, and is going to affect our industry. And so we really need to start not being shy about politics and not being shy about these hard subjects of, over policing of Black individuals, and, the mass incarceration and all these things. And, even down to marijuana laws, who would have known that we were, marrying these things of marijuana and house ownership. But it's like, you look at, certain states, Washington has it legalized, Colorado does too. There's all these people in jail who have records for stuff that's not a crime anymore. And so there's all these different systemic things that we need to work on. It's the chicken and the egg. What do we work on first? Individual microaggressions. Are we tackling systemic stuff? Are we tackling our local government, of how that's structured? I think it's just all at once. And I think that there is no right step. There is just, as long as we're moving forward. Yeah.
And I think it's important that you mentioned, about politics, because we really shouldn't keep them out. We need to include them. We need to participate. We need to sit at the table and all talk. I mean, we can, go on and on about politics, but I mean, for over 200 plus years, we've had 45 leaders and only one of color. So I mean, we have nothing to look at or look up to. And we need to start now and move forward, with change. And they need to work with us, and we need to work with them, and we need to move forward. And regarding the mass incarceration, I mean, perfect example is people want to know, why do people repeat and because we don't do anything for them. They serve their time, and then we just throw them out in the streets, and we just expect them to go, feed themselves and house themselves and figure this all out. And there's no support at all. And
Right.
That's probably a whole nother subject, but it just kind of triggered me when you had mentioned
Totally.
that.
But it's all related.
They all blend, don't they? They all blend.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's just kind of chain effect. And like we were saying earlier, it all starts from the top, and that goes for the government too. So and at every level, local, national, it's important that because money talks, and all these companies and stuff are pushing for certain politicians, and it's really, really hard to get anywhere without addressing the politics of our situation as well.
So last question on our list is, when trying to target a specific demographic for marketing purposes, for example, advertising to the LGBTQ plus community, do you find yourself using other people's biases to decide where to market, or the wording that you're using in your marketing? It's a hard question.
That's a deep one.
Yeah, I think it's hard because it's like, we hire these marketing people to analyze markets and what's going to be most effective, and what in general, these people are paying attention to or liking. And it's hard to, like, we want to break stereotypes and break these biases, but it's also like, they're also kind of, a source of how we are sourcing our marketing. So it's like this catch-22, we're like, where do we end one thing and we kind of just make it all inclusive of everyone? For us, we're launching, there's a really big Washington State bond loan program in Washington State, and we're trying to launch and specifically target people of color in the queer community. And we're like, well, how do we do this without look like we're pandering? And or our CEO is white, and so like we are very like, we don't want to have this kind of white savior concept either. And so the way we've kind of done it is we're trying to partner with other 501c3s that cater to those communities, and try to keep, other than language, sometimes try to keep the marketing the same across the board, but just where we're placing it. I'm really interested to see what everyone else answers this question, because I think it's a really tough one to tackle.
Yeah, because there's kind of a fine line between being, when you're marketing to a specific community, obviously you have to kind of know what that community likes, like where they're going to be able to see this marketing. So in that way, you're kind of crossing the line a little bit between marketing and using the biases to try to target that group. So it's really tough, because you don't want to, your intentions maybe aren't to be, aren't to be biased, but you've got to reach these people somehow. So you've also got to think about, all right, so where is the most likely spot that someone that I'm looking for is going to be able to see this marketing? So it's a tough situation, and it's like, you're gonna have to have your own biases in a way in order to kind of reach that community. And then you gotta think, is that a good thing or not?
I tell people, I'm like, don't Colonel Sanders me. Don't put a commercial out there that's going to make me think like, oh my God, I don't know if I ever want to have that again, because that is so offensive to me. But what I'll say from a marketing perspective is, for my marketing, anywhere I can in my marketing, I put I put a rainbow. But I put a rainbow anywhere I can because I want everyone who loves like me to know that I am a safe space for growth. So I'm attracting that. And I want people to know that I'm a woman of color, and I want people to know that I have a wife, and I want people to know that, and I want people to know these things, because I am that way. I am drawing in and inviting those people. So I think that from a marketing perspective, there are definitely symbols that we can use that attract and let other people know respectfully that I'm inviting in, like, this is a safe place. This is a safe place, and I'm inviting these people in. And I think that from a marketing perspective, we invite in, I always tell people, we reflect what we project, and we invite in what we reflect. So, I'm like, be yourself, and you will reflect out the type of people that you want to do business with. They'll come to you because of who you show yourself as, right? So I don't know if that answers the question or not, but that's the way I think and feel about it. I'm extremely transparent about who I am. Like it, love it, hate it, whatever the case is, this is who I am. So all the people who partner with me for growth and for support, they know who I am, and I know we're good for one another. Right. So I'm very transparent in that. I think if everyone creates their marketing in that way, it attracts.
Yeah, and I agree with that. We're the same way. The way we market is like we're out there. The real estate team on is called Team Diva, and we're divas, and we're out there, and people. We generally 99% of the time attract people that want to work with us, and we want to work with them, because what you see is what you get with us. And so there's not really need to necessarily like target a group or target here or there. It's just, this is us. And so it allows us to market kind of across the board for everyone, because like when they come to us, they know that this is what they're getting.
Yeah, I think the best way, and I'm a very firm believer in every realm, every professional, that the longer you work in an industry, the more you're just going to attract the people that you are supposed to and want to work with. And yeah, the best way to advertise that is to just live authentically and, live yourself, be your most true and best self. And I love that. And just being 100% transparent, in our triumphs and in our faults of, how we're learning along the way and what we're learning in the community that we're building is such a great way to, it's not necessarily targeting, it's just, living your truth. And I think that, even in Seattle, our neighborhood, I guess, is more or less getting more and more integrated with, the hetero world. And so it's, with our advertising stuff, it's just a plethora of people on print ads, and it's not like, oh, only gay couples on this one or only interracial couples on this one. It's like, all right, what stock images can we use? It's just a little bit of everything, because we do cater to everyone, but this is definitely the root of our values. And just like Sherry said, putting that little symbol, even if it's a little tiny room on the corner, is like, this is a safe place. It's just like, like at the grocery store or in a firehouse where there's, that safe place triangle where you can, drop off your kids or whatever. Or, it's a safe place in the community. And then the longer you commit to that message that you're putting out there, the stronger it gets organically, for sure. I love that.
Yeah, that was a thought that Irvin just brought up is, we need to make sure that when we're marketing to these communities and stuff, that we're also not like excluding other communities, for that one community. So it's like, keep your marketing consistent and have it all inclusive and have everyone, and market that same thing everywhere.
And you kind of triggered me when you were talking too, and we do like listing videos, and across the board, sometimes we use same-sex couples, sometimes we use heterosexual couples, you get trans people in some of our videos, and it is, I think by doing that, that kind of removes slowly bias from a lot of people's, people that may have thought oh, gay people buy houses together, or people I don't know what people think, but it kind of removes those biases that that people may have. And just by making it natural and normalizing it for people that Seattle's a bubble, is pretty normal here, but I know there's other parts of the country where they may see a same-sex couple in a real estate video and be appalled, but it normalizes it for people in general. And I think that just being yourself and being your authentic self is the way to kind of dissipate all those biases that people have.
Yeah, and we have seen a lot more, in the last, I'd say year or two, a lot more ads that, have a good mix. They'll have a same-sex couple, they'll have an interracial couple, they'll have different groups, and it's kind of geared toward housing, which I think is one of the kind of industries that hasn't maybe moved on as quickly as some of the other industries.
Right.
So it is really good to be able to see that now, and it's getting a little bit more mainstream.
Yeah. And I think it's really important too for people to see that it's not a check mark that some bigger corporations that all of a sudden are really into Pride season. You're like, we've been doing this parade for years, and all of a sudden, you found that our money is just as green. And so I think that for those who are listening or watching right now, who are looking for input to diversify their brokerages, and just to walk the walk to go to your Pride parades, donate to, your local LGBTQIA plus, youth shelter, be about it. Don't add the rainbow in there, with, like we said, and I think it wraps it up nicely, is from your hiring to what you're doing to volunteering within the community, is really figure out a way to incorporate inclusivity top to bottom in everything you do. So it's not just a look what we did. It's like the equivalent of all those people who just put a blackout picture on the social media. We're like, I'm a Black Lives Matter activist. It's we have to make sure that we're not performative, I think, as well, is a big deal.
Well, that wraps up all the questions that we have. And again, I appreciate everybody taking time out of their day and answering these questions. I do know some of them were tough. And the hashtag of the day, gay people buy houses.
Right, that's right.
Let me write that down. Hold on.
Right?
That copyrighted, Rocky.
I know, I need to get that. Get on it.
So with that, I'm going to pass this back over to our chairs, John and Rocky, and if you want to close us out.
Go for it, John.
Well, I was just going to reiterate.
John, you mind if I say real quick before you close us out?
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to invite everyone who's an ally to our community that is watching and listening. First of all, I want to say thank you for plugging in and watching and listening. There is a comfortable place to get uncomfortable and learn about the things that you know nothing about. And we hope that this was a space like that. And what we would love to invite you to do is to become a part of our community as an ally. By all means, lean into the Real Pride Network. Join us as an ally. Lean into more of our meetings, join committees, listen, because the best thing to do, in my opinion, is to listen. When you don't know what to say, just be comfortable in the quiet space and just listen. And so I want to thank you for just listening to us tonight. and all of these amazing human beings that I'm surrounded by. And then one last thing I'll say is my challenge for 2021 for myself is to stop unfriending people and unfollowing people, because my friend list on social media shrank significantly over the last year. And I think when we take the easy route and we unfriend and we unfollow, we put ourselves in these safe bubbles where everybody around us is having the same conversation. I really want to challenge conversation, and I want to be the person in the room that says, that's the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard. And can we have a conversation about it? Because I don't even know if you realize I'm somebody you respect. And this is the way I love. And this is the way I buy houses. And this is the way I live. And so I want to challenge everybody, maybe stop unfriending unless they're just so obnoxious you can't stand it, and have a sidebar conversation. So thanks for listening.
Sherry, you kind of stole my thunder a little bit. I'm not mad at it. No, that was perfect. But yeah, so I was just going to reiterate our mission. We bring together LGBTQ plus real estate professionals and those associated around the real estate industry. We want to connect like-minded consumers with all of our professionals. We're giving back to those who are facing housing challenges, and we're going to advocate for equality in housing with a particular emphasis on safe housing for LGBTQ2+ seniors and homeless youth. And our core values, we're inclusive, we believe in democracy, transparency, and accountability. And if these values align with what your values are, we want you to join us. I put the link in the chat. We would love for you to be a part of our network. We want you to get involved and help us educate and, just spread the love. Like we gotta cut down on the hate and just start accepting and loving everybody. And I want to thank everyone for being here with us today. Rocky, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I just wanted to say thanks everyone for being here today on the panel. It was a great panel. It was super exciting. I've been looking forward to it all month. And just to kind of reiterate, I think this is a great opportunity for people out there to join an organization that from the ground up wants to be inclusive and wants to have a diversity through this organization. And it's, a lot of these real estate institutions have been around for a long time. And so no offense, but it's usually old white guys that are running them. And this is a really refreshing to be in a place, in a space where there's all types of different people, including some white guys in there that are in charge. So, but I do want to invite everyone that found this fascinating and that is interested in networking and interested in educating and interested in making our industry better for everyone to join us. And we will have lots of more events like this and happy hours and all kinds of things that we can join in. You can join into. So stay tuned. In the future, we are here to stay.
All right. Well, we are going to end our YouTube live, and we hope to see everyone here for the next event. And we will be posting that on our website soon and on our Facebook group. We're going to put all the links down below. Like our channel, comment, subscribe, get involved, and we hope to see y'all next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.